वो इस घर में कभी नहीं आएगी। वो दोनों यहाँ कदम भी नहीं रख सकते। मेरा नाम भी भवानी है।
This lady, Bhavani Devi, my ex-monster-in-law, has kept me daunting for the past 20 years of my life. It was an extremely traumatizing experience. Well, today it's a different story. I'm Arpita Sharma, a designer, and I'm 40 years old. And today I would like to take you through my journey of becoming a designer. I've been working in this industry for the past 18 years. And it is this lady, Bhavani Devi, who has become the sole hero of my life when I was married in that home. Confused? Well, let me explain this in detail. It so happened that I was reading these short stories from the Blank Space project, and one story that left an impression in my mind was The Lloronas of Juarez. It's written by Albert Orozco and Edward Rivero, and I instantly connected to it. I remembered how I had fled from the tortures of that evil lady, and I had landed in a similar situation, a concentration camp. So when I read the story, I could empathize with the condition of people with the interstate border disputes. The bordering river between US and Mexico had separated the mothers from their children, and these mothers worked after hours in the maquiladoras factories to set up and plan the city along the river and solve these disputes, and thus they became the Lloronas. I related and brainstormed every aspect in the story to get clarity. I started imagining the city making on the river and thus made some sketches. And then I finally created and imagined the immigrants' camp. And soon I realized that this work was being showcased in a gallery. So I also created a poster for that exhibition. That was the first step when I realized visuals affect me. To come out of this dark side that kept me in for days because I got so involved in it, I started recalling my life when I was young. Colored life was a thing of past in my life. So I picked up these pastels and started painting my once colorful life. I didn't want to bring out the dark phase of my life, which was going as a daughter-in-law in an evil home, and therefore I kept running from it. I created so many paintings reflecting my younger, colorful life that I compiled them together to create this hanging piece for my wall. It was all about documenting my experiences and adventures. I realized that the same adventurous spirit had helped me overcome my later problems in my life. And well, my life will always be called Adventure Awaits. So I even wrote a book with the same title and designed a cover as well for the same. It felt great to write my emotions. It also gave me confidence to speak more openly about my dark phase as well. At this point, I started creating visuals for the things that really connected with me. And I sent an application for various design firms, sending this little portfolio that I had. While recollecting my life, I discovered how I had suddenly felt all alone. So I tried connecting to my close friends. My one such friend was Roshan Adarsh. And at this time, I also got selected in the Skinny Ship studio and had started working with Richard Paris, a Portland-based graphic designer. I learned a lot under him, so much that his design principles got embedded in me. I started realizing the power of stroke and flat shapes and color in his designs, and subconsciously started using that. So I sent my dearest friend Roshan some postcards in my newly adopted style to inform her about my job and remind about our friendship. I also sent her a poster for her bedroom wall, which was in a form of a collage. As I love writing poems and journals, I also made her a memories journal by creating a Coptic stitch binding. This gift making was a wonderful experience, and my life has started to come together nicely.
Studio was going great. One day, after coming back from the studio, I happened to go to a random painting exhibition. It was the Hall of Fame of the greatest painters of the world. I was standing at this one painting and I kept staring at it. It was very inviting, as well as weird and unnatural at the same time. I rushed immediately to the library nearby and started reading books on the painter. He was André Derain. His work was neither realistic nor abstract, but Fauvistic. He was the co-founder of Fauvism, and the use of unnatural pure colors straight from the tube on basic landscapes, which were captured so spontaneously, brought me closer to his work. I started researching on him daily, started capturing the themes the same way he might have done, and I used those impulsive strokes in my paintings as well. I started seeing my environment through Derain's eyes.
During this time, I decided to go back to my home country, India, because I missed my culture and my people. Though that did remind me of my Saas, but I figured I couldn't run from it. There, I painted the famous architectural ramp of Sept Ahmedabad, adding everything that Derain had taught me, from his unique color palettes to composition to his painting techniques. Well, after writing, painting, illustrating, I wanted to try something new. This was the phase when I was watching so many movies, and I wanted to understand movie making. I discovered this Irish studio that made films, that too in animation. This interested me, and I made some frames for the movie. I loved the idea of combining both digital and traditional mediums. The use of watercolors in the background and digitizing the characters later added this interesting visual factor. I worked with Tom Murray on Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. After working with Tom Murray, I decided to make my own film, and this forced me to recall the past events of my life. It gave me a brilliant idea to make an animation movie on her. I decided to theme this movie on her and about her life. So I took out everything in terms of writing, creating, sound effects, narrative, illustrations, everything. And all at once I was relieved. All that I had learned in my life, I've given it to this movie. I worked on huge canvases to first visualize and produce these spaces for the production design. And here is the poster of this movie, Saas Ka Khauf. Let me give you the trailer now. The dark nights of Bhavani Devi are spent in this underground space. She gets to try the experiments with the most obsessed thing on earth, the eyes. Why? Because she herself has a twitch in her eye. And who thought a Saas might learn and research on black magic? She's all dressed up in her black sari, which is the opposite of what she wears during the day. She adorns herself in the mirror, and hence prepares. She's worked really hard to get here. She's read books, researched papers, met gurus. And thus she makes up these portions, does jap and puja of Bhairav. Because she's ready to perform the ritual on those eyes that she has collected over the past few years in this black magic room. This lady was always keen to find a reason to harm. She found all the reasons to torture me. And dare I make any mistake in front of her, she would take me to this dark, dingy place and keep me tied through the shackles and chains. She repurposed her kitchen and garden tools and used them against me. She would burn me in the feet, face, or hands, and she'd kept that sharp tools to cut my fingers and toes. She used to cut tongue of servants and leave them with cage with lots of lizards and snakes. She could resort to any method when it comes to her status or dignity. She wanted to be the superior most and the richest one, and thus exploited people in ways one couldn't imagine. Portraying herself as the richest person, she walks like a queen in her haveli, up and down through the staircases. She moves through the halls, inspecting the walls and the finished interiors. The extensive carvings and lightings displays her grand behavior. Lights are laid in every corner. She kind of finds happiness there, and finds ways in what more could be added to the red royalty. As royal as she showcases her, she kept herself and her surroundings top-notch. Manipulating the land papers was in her blood. She lived like the ruler of the world because of the power the walls of her interiors gave. Always and every time she is ready to steal. And dare anyone interrupts her or intrudes her, she could go violent right away. Royal flooring and carpets are laid for none to walk but her. Selfish and greedy as she always was, she could go to any means to prove herself right. Dominant in her character as well as her spaces. Saas ka Khauf will be soon in theaters.